Hi everyone, it's your favorite creative mentor, senior designer and art director Falcon. Welcome to the Photoshop Foundation series where we learn all the basics piece by piece before moving to some more expert level knowledge. Today we are going to talk about the Move tool. Might seem pretty simple, but I feel it's best for us to learn the tools before we start learning how to use those tools to make some very cool stuff. So I'm here in Photoshop CC, the latest update. Today is the 28th of May, 2024. So if you've got the most recent update, then you should be good. Firstly, I downloaded some images from Unsplash. If you are working in the digital creative space, I'm sure that you are aware of Unsplash. It's one of the best, in my opinion, free image platforms, repositories. Very cool stuff, very tailored, very well edited, and some cool images. So I just downloaded these three to kind of show you different things that we can use them, well, different ways we can use the Move tool and just get to grips with the tool itself. So firstly, where does the Move tool live? If you look at your toolbar, mine is set up ever so just a little bit different than what it would be if you've opened Photoshop for the first time. Usually it would sit like this, all in one row. If you just click those double arrows in the top, it will make it sit next to each other. I prefer this layout. Having all the tools in easy reach is a benefit. The Move tool is the very first one you'll see up there. It's 4 arrows pointing in each direction. If you hover over it, you will see that it says Move tool. The shortcut for the Move tool, as you can see right there, is V. I would recommend getting to grips with your shortcuts. If you know that, then you will very rarely actually have to go and click on it in the toolbar, which when you get into a creative flow, you don't really want to waste time going back and forth, back and forth. If you do hit V and you don't get the Move tool, but you get the Artboard tool instead, it's because they both live under the same sandwich menu. If you long click on that tool, you will see that you get the Move tool and the Artboard tool. Both of their shortcuts are V. So if you are getting the Artboard, just long click on there, select Move, and now that Move is your primary one. And if you don't use Artboards in between your workflow, every time you hit V, it should go straight to the Move tool. Next up, let's talk about the moving handles. So I'm going to hide these two layers in my layers panel. I've grouped them for a specific reason. We'll get to that a bit later. For now, let's just focus on this image. So when you click on an image, you're going to get what is called the bounding box or the transform controls of whichever item you've selected. You will get the same controlling box, whether it's an image, text, a shape. It doesn't really matter. If it's a layer, it will have this controlling box that allows you to resize the image in any way you want to. Now, if you click on the side one, you will see that you can move the image disproportionately to make it thinner or wider. If you click on the corner one, you can make it thinner, wider, taller and shorter all in one go. You're not restricting yourself to just that one axis of scaling. Same goes for the above. You just work in that one aspect. Now, if you don't want to distort your image, what you want to do when you click the control on the corner, it does work for the side as well. When you click any of the control corners or points on your control box and you hold down Shift, it will proportionately scale that image whichever way you are pulling. If you are pulling closer, then it's going to make it smaller. Outwards, it's going to make it larger. That applies for any of the control sections. You will see if you do hit the corner, then it's going to transform to the opposite corner, meaning that one. That's essentially going to be the center point of your transformation. When you do it from the side, the opposite control handle again becomes your center point. So you can keep that in mind. It's not a big difference. It just depends on where or how you want to scale your item or your layer in relation to the other objects you've got in your design. Now, another thing, if you want to flip your image, for example, or you want to scale two sides at the same time, what you will do is click on one of the control handles, and instead of hitting Shift, you will hit Alt. When you hold down Alt, you will see that both opposing sides scale at the exact same time. This can be useful if you want to flip something, but again, you can see that it's not doing so proportionately, and you very rarely want to distort your image. It's not really something that you would want to do with an actual image. You might want to do it for creative purpose with another layer, if it's like a paintbrush or something, but for images, you generally want to keep them proportionate. Now, if you hold down Alt and Shift while managing a control handle, you will see that the whole thing basically works the same way. But now when you go past the center point, it's going to flip it both ways. It's going to flip it from left to right and up to down. And that's not always useful. If you do want to mirror an object or a layer or an image with this method, I would recommend just pulling it to the side of your artboard so it's flush up against the side, and then when you hold down on the control handle and you hit Alt at the same time, just pull it until you get back to that side. It will automatically snap to that end, so you know your image is now rotated or mirrored proportionately. Same goes for if you want to do it from the bottom up. Hold Alt, let it snap, and now you've got it proportionately mirrored. That's the very basics of the move tool. I mean, there really isn't much else to know about it. You will see that if you click on it and you drag it around, it's going to move, hence the move tool. Once you click one of these handles, you will see that the image or the layer that you have selected gets this big cross right through the image. That means that you are basically in transformation mode. These two icons will also pop up at the top of your workspace. When that happens, you will see that you can't really select anything. Like most of the things in your artboard, especially when you've actually actioned something, isn't really going to work the way that you would expect it to work. You need to first commit your transformation. If, for example, you start editing something and you've pulled it and you've distorted it and you're not happy with how it's gone, if you haven't ticked or confirmed the transformation yet, you can simply click cancel transformation, and it's going to revert the layer back to the previous state that it was before you entered transform mode. Very basic again. It just makes life a bit easier. There are some other tools in here that you can use to transform your layer in different ways, but we won't get into much detail with that now. We will run through that in another lesson. We're keeping these small, running through all the details of each tool. And yeah, last thing I would like to show you when it comes to the move tool. So I've just opened up my, revealed this group of two images over there. First thing you will see, so when you click an image, you get the transformation box around it. Sometimes you might find that you don't, even when you click an image, you don't see your transform handles pop up along the side. If that is the case, all you have to do is, while your move tool is selected, you go to this little gear icon at the top of your UI, click on it, and you will see there's an option called Show Transform Controls. Mine is ticked, so I see my transform controls, but if it's not ticked, you will see that the transform controls do not appear when I select a layer, even though it does show in my layers panel that it is selected. Simply go there, make sure that there's a tick next to Show Transform Controls, and you will be able to see your transform controls. Another option within these settings is to show layer bounds on hover. I generally keep mine unticked just because a lot of the times I work with a lot of layers in Photoshop, depending on what type of project I'm working on. But basically what that is I'm going to show you. So if I tick this on and I click off of all my objects, when I hover over an image, you will see that there's a little blue line that pops up around the image. It's not the transform controls, it's basically just highlighting the item that you are hovering over. That might come in handy when you're working with a lot of masks, a lot of stuff that's overlaid in the same design. If you're not sure what you are busy hovering over, then this might come in handy. But I don't really find a lot of use out of this because there's another setting within the move tool. So I'm going to just deselect that again. I don't need that on hover. Show hover bounds from layers is basically the same thing, but instead of doing it on the image on your artboard, if you go and hover over the image in your layers panel, you will see that those little highlighting blue lines pop up around each image as I scroll over them. That is also quite nice, especially when you've got a lot of layers in your artwork and you're not sure where it sits. Easier to find it in the layers panel, especially when you do use proper naming conventions. Again, we will run through how to use your layers panel in the best way in another lesson. But basically that just shows you which item you're selecting or wanting to select from your layers panel. Obviously when you click it, then the controls pop up, but if you're just hovering through a bunch of layers, you can see quickly where that item from your layers panel is sitting in your artboard. And lastly, under the settings, we've got expand layer group on click. So basically what this is, that's why I made this group here. So if I collapse this group and I go and click on one of these two images, these are the two images that I've got in that group. You will see that once I click it, the group automatically expands, which is quite nice. I find that quite useful. Some projects I don't, so I take the tick away from that option. But most generally, it is quite nice to click an object in your artboard and immediately see where it sits in your layers panel. So now if I go back to settings and I untick that setting, that option, then you will see that when I click one of these images, the group does not expand. But for the move tool, that's about it. Again, yeah, if you select everything or multiple items, you'll see that the control boxes surround all the items you've selected. You can move and scale them proportionately, disproportionately, all together. Once again, you have to commit your transformation once you are happy, or cancel it if you are not happy. But that is the move tool in a nutshell. Thanks everyone. If you enjoyed this basic introduction to the move tool for Photoshop, drop a like, stick around. We are going to be running through almost every single tool in Photoshop, and then once we've done that, we are going to move on to some more mastering of these tools, how to use them in a practical sense. Thanks again everyone, have a great time, enjoy the move tool, and start playing around in Photoshop. It's the best way to learn. You can't break it, so just keep playing. You can always reset settings to its primary method or function, so don't be scared to play around. Until next time, have a good one.